Okay, good evening. We're up to Lamed Vav Amid Aleph. We're in the sugya of Dinei Mammon, Dinei Nefashos, and contrasting versus Dinei Mammonis. We want to figure out exactly there are 10 differences. We'll see them Bez Hashem at the end of today's daf. The 10 differences between Dinei Mammonis, Dinei Nefashos of a Dinei Mammonis. One of the things we mentioned that Dinei Mammonis, Dinei Nefashos, you begin from, if it's Tumah V'Tari, you begin from the Gadol. And Dinei Nefashos, you begin from the Tzad. So the Gemara begins with the story. Parallel to the Tosfos, Kuloi Kula Shniya Kamina. Kula Shneha Amina. Amarav. Anohave b'minyana debei Rebbe. So we had a Gemara in Gittin regarding Sikrikin. These are people who went ahead and killed people for the land, and they extorted the land, and they sold it after 12 months, and they said it's a good deal. And you have to go ahead and reimburse the person it was taken from. That's the context of the statement of Rav. I know Havi Binyona debei Rebbe. I was counted among the Dayanim of Rebbe. Umino Didi Havi Mask liberation. They began from me first. Right? They began from me first. Instead of starting with Rebbe, they began counting what from me first. So I Vanan Maskilim in Agadol Tanan. We learned you should begin from the major Dayan, from the head Dayan. So Amarabba braid the Rava v'itema Rav Rebbe Hillel braid the Rebbe Velis shiny minyana debei Rebbe the kula minyayu minatzad havi maskele. By Rebbe's bezdin, they all began from the side. Says Reb. Now minatzad means he's the youngest dayan. From they said as an ugel from the side. There's different mafarshim. What does it mean minatzad? Doesn't mean the smallest dayan, the youngest dayan. Doesn't mean the one sitting on the side. This machloikas rishayim. However, if you look at why was Rebbe's bezdin different? What was unique about Rebbe's bezdin? Right? There was tremendous anivus in Rebbe. Rebbe there was tremendous anivus. Because the Rebbe's anivus, they began what? They began from the side. Okay, Bez Hashem, we're going to see. I sent out a Megol. Say Yom today. We'll see Bez Hashem after we finish this Agarata. Amar Rabba Berei Derava, the Itema Rebbe Hillel Berei Derav Velis. Most Moshe, from the days of Moshe Va'ad Rebbe, Leimatzinu Torah Ugadula b'Makom Echad. From the time of Moshe until the time of Rebbe, we didn't find Torah Ugadula b'Makom Echad. Says Rashi. What does that mean? Torahson Ugadulason Shal Yisrael ba'Adam Echad. The greatness in Torah and the Gedula. Rashi in Gittin says wealth. Gedula. Rashi seems to say over here is Malchus. She'ein kamoisei b'Chol Yisrael b'Torah u'b'Gedula. There was no one in Klal Yisrael that you found these two components in one individual, right? Kigain Moshe shahayagadol al Klal Yisrael b'Malchus u'b'Torah. So Rashi's teaching Gedula here is Malchus, as Malchus, and Torah Gedula and Torah's kipshutai. So from Moshe Rabbeinu to the time of Rebbe, there were many people who had Torah, and many people who had Gedula, but they have both. In other words, be uniquely the greatest in both. You had to be like in first place in both. Only Moshe, from Moshe to Rebbe, which is, again, I don't know, 15, 16, 1700 years, a tremendous period of time. V'chein Rebbe b'Nesias, Rebbe, again, there was no Malchus b'nei Rebbe, guys, but Rebbe was the direct descendant of David HaMelech. He's the Nasi. U'b'Torah. So Rashi qualifies when it says Torah Gedula. What are we speaking about? Greatness in Torah and in Malchus and in the Siyas, in Gedula. Fred the Gemara, Veloy v'havi Yeshua. The Yeshua had both the greatness in Torah and Gedula. Have Elazar. Elazar, I guess, was his contemporary in Torah. V'havi Pinchas. Havi Zekanim. By the Pinchas, you had Zekanim. You had a Sneel ben Kenaz. You had Rashi says Ivtzon. That was Boaz. V'havi Shaul. You had Shaul. Havi Shmuel. Shmuel was greater than Shaul in Torah. V'noyach Nafshei. Right, Shmuel died in the lifetime of Shaul. So at that time, Shaul had the greatness in Torah and Gedula. It says, it means throughout the person's life. For Havi David, says, Havi Ira Hayiri. Ira Hayiri, Rashi says, the Havi Masni Lu Rabbanan al Gabi Korim V'Kistois. He would teach people while sitting on pillows and mattresses. But David Haya Min Hagav Alav L'Roish. And David was manhigim is the Roish. Tichsiv Ira Hayira Haya Kayin LeDavid. So he knows David was in Gedula, but he was the Chari, he was David's greater than David and Torah. But Noach Nafshe, he died in David's lifetime. Says Mar Kulish Nei Karminan. But have a Shlomo Lachar, you have Gedula and Torah b'Makom Echad. Have a Shimon ben Gera. Furthermore, of a Katley. Right, he killed Shimon ben Gera. On his father told him to find the reason to kill Shimon ben Gera. Says Gemara Kulish Nei Karminan for all the years. And so therefore, since Shimi was alive in the lifetime of Shlomo, then you didn't find it Kula Gedula in the Torah b'Makom Echad. Havi Chizkiah, Havi Shevna. Now we said Shevna was a Russia. Okay, well maybe see Taisus in a second. Okay, Shevna. You might remember he went out to give himself over to Sanhedrin, and he ended up being alone, and he ended Nebuchadnezzar. He ended the horses dragged him his heels, and not good ending. But we saw Shevna had 140,000, whereas Chizkiah only had 110,000. But Ichtal, I was killed, so the one gives the same terror. It's Kula Shnia Kaminan. For Have Ezra, having Nehemiah ben Chachalya, who was in Gedula, was great. You know, he was very attached in Gedula to the government for the Persians. Amrav Adabarava, Afani Oimemi, most Rebbe Ad Reb Ashi, Lemetzina Torah Gedul Makam Echad. You said from Moshe to Rebbe, I'll extend it from Rebbe Yehuda Nasi till the great Rav Ashi, right? V'loi v'havi Huna bar Nasan. There was Huna bar Nasan in the days of what of Rabbi Ashi. It says Huna bar Nasan michav havi kafel Rav Ashi. He made himself less to Rav Ashi. So again, the Gemara concludes that from Moshe to Rebbe, there was no one like what you found those two components together. Let's see the second Taisus down. We said Shevna. Isvarim, the loy garis lay the Chizkiah, lay hoya Moishal al Kol Yisrael. They're not garis Chizkiah. You know why? Guys, what does Gedula mean? Malchus. Malchus means you're the melech for everyone. But b'mei Chizkiah, the Malchus had been split already. It was split with the son of Shlomo, Rechavam. It was split, and Yeravam took the 10 Shvatim. So there are those who are not Goyris Chizkiah because you don't find the Gedula because he wasn't the only Melech. He wasn't the only Melech. So there are those who are not Goyris Chizkiah. Shekvar Golu Asar Shvatim v'Oid the Shevna Rasha Haya v'Loy Minyanahu. In other words, you're saying there was Shevna. Shevna was not Tzaddik. Shevna was a Rasha, as we saw. So therefore, v'Teida the Chiparach Havi David Loy Mishani Hachi Teifel. Now, guys. When they said you had David, they answered Ira Hayeri, right? They should answer Achitophel. Achitophel was his advisor. Achitophel was his equivalent or greater in Torah. Why didn't you say Achitophel? Because he was a Rasha. So therefore, there are those who are not Goyris Chizkiah, because if you Goyris Chizkiah, you're going to have to be Goyris Shevna. And Shevna was a Rasha. And you see clearly a raya that you're not Goyris Rishayim, because you should have been Goyris Achitophel as a counterpart to David. And we're not. So that's what he wanted to say. Shekara, that David called him Alufay or Muyadua. He called him his officer and his Muyadua. Keeping the Rasha having Ein Min Aminyan Uksas Kashad Lemishani having Piboishes Mevayish Pnei David Balacha. We see in Gemara and Brachas that the Piboishes was the son of Shaul and he was Mevayish him. And the Gemara says we didn't say him. Okay, either way. I thought it's interesting that this place did not go to Skiskia. Now we said that Rebbe was an Anav. Rebbe was a tremendous honor. So I sent out a nice piece, guys. I sent out, go to your phones. I sent out a really nice piece. From the Sefer Magolias Hayam. Again, a fantastic Sefer. You just have to look up his sources because he shortens the. Guys, you have Vama Rabba Braid the Rava? Everyone have it? Yankel, I sent it to you. You should have it. I sent it to you. I did. Yes. What? Mayor, yeah, I sent it to you, Mayor. Okay. 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 He quotes a sefer that I'm unfamiliar with. Inyan shenismach maimazer. Why is this thing? What's this here doing here? From the time of Moshe till Rebbe, you didn't find Torah Gedul B'Makom Echad. What's it doing here? What's it doing in our Gemara? In other words, it's nice. We enjoyed having the Agadata, but what's it doing over here? What's the connection? Right? L'de'el shanav yisera hoisa beRebbe. The l'chayra hechi avid Rebbe hachi. How could Rebbe have done this? Hainasi ain't kvod machal. We have a concept, the Gemara in Kedushin, that a parent can be machal in the covet, but a melech can't be machal on his covet. So how is it possible for Rebbe to be machal on his covet? How is it possible for Rebbe to be machal on his covet? That he began counting from the side when he began counting Rav instead of himself. He was a nasi. He had a din of a melech. So a nasi can't be meichel on his covet. So how was it possible for Rebbe to go ahead and begin with Rav from the side rather than himself? Amnam, hine, hatam sha'asa loy levater al kvoidai. The reason he can't be mevater on his covet, k'dei shlo yersha atzmai mishahu lahagid, right? Gamani kamahu. It's like giving reshus to somebody. I'm like him. In other words, when you're the king, you're the king. There's no equal. But if you're Michael and you're covered, it can lend itself for a person saying, I'm no different than him. And if you do that, you'll begin increasing machlokes. That, in other words, he's not number one. I'm an equivalent. I can argue with him. So the reason why a nasi or a king can't be Michael on his covered is because it'll cause machlokes. Another person thinking I'm an equal. Nasi hu adam she'en kamahu b'doiroi. In a nasi, there's no one equal to him in Torah. Ubegedula, ein lachshesh lekach. Guys, when Rav Chaim Kanievsky would be Michael on his covet, trust me, no one's going to go ahead and think they're an equal of Rav Chaim Kanievsky. That's how. No one. Everyone knew that Kanievsky had no equal in Torah. It was just
Moshe, right? Moshe that Moshe said he can't. What is it? With the constant
right. So that was it was a Maritz Chias. Yeah, Zachari ben Avtula, he didn't hold himself so big, and that caused his anivus. And yeah, that's correct. And that's very good. That's exact. Yankel brings in an exact. There was Zachariah ben, I forget, Avtulis. He was Michael on his cover. It was an unav because he didn't want to argue, and it caused because he knew that they should have killed Bar Kamsa. He knew they should have brought the korban, right? But he didn't think it was great enough, right? So in his anivus caused it. That was the Yankel brings the geschmack. Maritzchias. It's mamish. You head on. It's a head on sushla. Yeah. Again, we learned it. Yeah, we learned it in the original source, and we saw it again. Rav Moshe, right? Rav Moshe did. Yeah, but it's a head on sushla. Very good. So guys, so what happens if it's clear that this guy's the God Ladan? No one's gonna. It's not gonna cause machlokes. And therefore, Vishape Hisnaig Rebbe Babunasai. Therefore, on Bunasai, Rebbe was possible because even after Rebbe went ahead and was Michael on his covers, Mavata, no one would go ahead and argue that he was an equivalent to Rebbe. V'chein mitzina b'Moshe Rabbeinu al v'shalom. Shal ya'anav mikol adam. Asher al pnei adam. The pasuk says openly, Moshe was the biggest son of. How can Moshe be a non-avite? It's going to be marba machlokes because no one's going to go ahead and say what he's an equivalent. Ubetoris Chaim, one of our favorite svarim. Ubetoris Chaim kosav hatayra yesh bo gimel machlokes. There's gimel machlokes, mikra, mishnah, ugemara. You have chumash, mishnayos, and gemara. Lakach kashem sheha mikra nichtav al yidei Moshe Rabbeinu v'shalom shahoy kamo b'Torah u'b'gedula kei nistra hamishna al yidei Rabbeinu hakadosh shahoy kamo b'Torah u'b'gedula. So the Mishnayos was brought down by Rebbe, and there was no equivalent, right? Right, and geschmack. He was able to go ahead and gather all the chachamim u'lasad ha'mishnah. V'chein Rebbe Ashi hagadol b'doiroi b'toira u'gedula v'hayakoyach biyadei lekabetz kol chachmei doiroi u'lasader kol ha'memais v'halachas shenischatshu ad yomav. Okay, so it's beautiful. Sushtel over here. Who are the three people? The three people were Moshe, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, and Rav Ashi. Who gave us the Torah? Who is Masad the Mishnayos? Rebbe. Who gave us the Gemara? Rav Ashi. So it's they who had the Torah Gedula were able to give us the three halakim of Torah. Says the Torah Chaim.
When they set up the semicircle,
we didn't get there yet. It's tomorrow's Mishnah. It's tomorrow's Mishnah. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so you're speaking over here. So what's the tushtel? What's the tushtel that? So very good. Let's go. Let's theorize. So you have the Gemara is saying that you're supposed to begin with the biggest dayan, and then the Gemara brings in a Maisa with Rebbe's Bezdin that they brought in what? Another dayan. They brought in Rav, who was not from the greatest. And Rashi brings, why? Because Rebbe was Mavata, he was an Anov. He was an Anov. So then what's the next Gemara? That you didn't find Torah Gedula in one place. What's the connection? Since Rebbe was such an Anov that he was able to go ahead, and he was so great that Torah and Gedula will be in the same place, the fact that he was Michael on his covet in his Anivus would not be affected. Because Samazai, a Melech is not be able to Michael on his covet. Rebbe shouldn't have been able to Michael. But because of his Anivus, and Misir, so that's the raya, the paper trail. A dayan supposed to begin with the begig, Rebbe didn't begin with the begig. Okay, so now we're in Gemara, right? Rebbe did not begin with the biggest dayan, so now we have it in Gemara. That's the case. Good. Yes.
Something when you let the smallest one go first.
We'll get there. Yeah. We'll get there. Right. Yeah, but so now, like this. So now that you've established that Rebbe did this, we bring in the next member. You didn't find Mak and Gedula and Torah in the same place. Because if you didn't have that, you couldn't explain how is it possible for Rebbe to be Michael on his covet. After all, a Nasi can't be Michael on his covet. But now the fact that he had Torah Gedula b'Makam Echad, and there would be no machlokes, because the reason why you can't be Michael is because it's going to be marba machlokes that people might think there's an equal. Memela, now that you know that Rebbe was Torah Gedula, it explains how Rebbe could go ahead and be Mivater on his covenant in the first place. That's the paper trail. That's the paper trail. Geschmack. Okay, Din Nefash is masculine and not sad. You begin from the sad, meaning you don't. This is Din Nefashis. Minani Mili. Amrav Achabar Papa Amakra. Leisana al Riv. Do not answer on a fight. Leisana al Rav. It's written without a yud. Do not go ahead and answer against the Rav. Now, fellas, let me ask you a question. Does that mean that that means if the oldest dayan, if you can't argue, so what kind of bezdin do you have? The oldest dayan, what does that mean? In other words, the reason why you don't begin with the first one, because if you do, then the other ones who will answer will be, like Dov said, be arguing on what? On the elder. So the Marsha says beautiful, guys. Marsha says beautiful. My age. Marsha says beautiful. Let's say you're sitting and you're learning, and you're going to the sugya really well. So Rav Moshe Feinstein Zechat Tzadik Kodesh Racha gets up and he says pshat in the sugya. What are you going to do? What you're gonna listen, right? You're not going to think. Rav Moshe said it's going to cut off all what? All intellectual thinking. Everything will stop. Well, how can I argue Rav Moshe? So if you have a dayan who would go ahead and open his mouth, the gadol would open first, right? It would stop you from thinking. So memela, of course, you can argue with the. That's the purpose of the whole bezdin. Of course, if your svara is correct, if you disagree, you're able to disagree, no problem. My Rebbe wrote a piece in his sefer. My Rebbe has a piece in his sefer, and he has a whole shtickle Torah and on mitzvah shesman grama, and my brother took it out. My brother, from my brother's kasha, he took it out. And my Rebbe said, he was masking to him. How can my brother argue with the great Rav Gustman? It's Torah. Of course you could argue. It's hard to argue once you hear what a person says. So that's Milasan Arav. The reason why he opens his mouth doesn't mean you can't argue with him, Dov. It means, it says the Marsha, it's beautiful Marsha. It says the reason why he doesn't open his mouth is you're going to stop you from arguing, because you know what? You won't be thinking clearly, because you'll be accepting what he says. It's beautiful pshat. Beautiful Marsha. Beautiful Marsha. It's Yisrael this thing Marsha. Another proof. So one proof is from the Torah, and now we have a proof from the Navi. Okay, what does it say in the Navi? That there was a person novel. David had worked for novel, and he watched his flock, and And David wanted his wages. And Novel said, I'm not giving you anything. David was the Melech, but he was the Melech elect. Shaul was still alive. So David was the Melech elect. David felt Novel was Mori b'Malchus, and David was going to kill Novel. And that's where Abigail came and saved his life. Because he told him that you're not the king yet. Okay, you are the king, but you're not the king. So here's what it says. It says the following. By Yoime David, so Rabba Barachana Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mehacha. By Yoime David ad Nashav, David says to his men, Chagru ish escharboy, go ahead and gird your sword. Charbi ish eschargo, go ahead and gird your sword. V'yachgar gam David escharboy. And David also, so after what it says to them, gird the sword, then what it says David afterwards. So you see that what David doesn't say David first, and we learn from here that the one should open his mouth first is the smaller dayan before the larger dayan. That's now there's a Taisus over here that gets into Mori b'Malchus was not. I don't know if it's Kedai. Let's just see a little bit of this Taisus. Rabbi Chana Amar Rabbi Yochanan mehacha v'yakruish hacha mashma she Mori b'Malchus. The boy Medina de David, my melech. In other words, question. There's a big aside that if you're married b'malchus, it's not a din in Sanhedrin, that the king can kill you without consulting with Sanhedrin. If you're bringing this as a raya that it's a Sanhedrin that David said vayachar, it's obviously what he's judging him. So is what's the din? If David is passing a novel married b'malchus, fellas, then how you talking? What's going on over here? That he's calling a bezdin together. L'chayr, it's not a din in bezdin. That's the question. V'chein b'perik behema b'ama behema gabe Uriah. Uriah was the husband of Bathsheba, and David was married b'malchus by saying that how he didn't listen to David and went home. He said that how can I go home when we're at war? Shahayil the David l'doini b'Sanhedrin v'leidaina. David should have judged him in Sanhedrin, and he didn't. Now, I think the Taisus and Megillah says that really, what Pshat is, David should have judged him in Sanhedrin because people shouldn't be suspicious that he killed him to get his wife. So really, in other words, really, a king could judge him. But in this instance, by Uriah, he should have judged him in Sanhedrin just to avoid rumors. So this is not a very good proof. This proof is not a great proof. Okay, the kasha. So then he brings in the kasha. So I just wanted to introduce to you the idea that is the din of dayan of Meridim Malchus is a din of dayan. It's not a din of dayanis, right? So so Taisus, this is the Indian of this Taisus. Okay, back in the Gemara. Amarav. Shaina Adam l'Talmidai v'dan imai v'dinei nefashis. A Rebbe could go ahead, teach the reason for a din to his Talmidim, and then he can judge with them, and they'll be considered b'dinei nefashis as two separate dayanim. They'll be considered two separate dayanim, and they won't be considered one voice. He taught him, and they won't be considered one voice. Fred the Gemara, how could you say that? How could Rav say that? I mesivei hatahayros v'atameos ha'avu benoi harav talmidoi moinul hem shnayim. Then you can be counted as two dayanim. Dinei mamin is dinei nefashos v'dinei makis kiddush hachodesh v'iibur shana, and making a leap year. Avu benoi harav talmidoi ein moinum la el echad, only one. So what are we speaking about over here? We're speaking about over here dinei nefashos. Yet what did you say? You counted as two. Yeah, we have a Brisa saying you only count as one. Kasha and Rav. Rav said you counted as two. We haven't said you only counted as one. And for Amid Beis, Ki Ka'amar Rav, Ki Goin Rav Kahana v'Ravasi. When Rav said they counted as two, who's he speaking about? He's speaking about Rav Kahana v'Ravasi. The Lenigmei de Rav Havitzrichi, to know Rav's learning, to know his Brises, to know the Mishnayos, to know facts that he had memorized and brought down. That you needed. Ulisvarei the Rav, however, the Svaras Rav, loy havitzricha, they didn't need. In other words, when it came to analyzation and greatness of intellectual thought, they didn't need Rav. They were Rav's Talmidim concerning passing down information, but regarding the thought process. So since in Dinei Nefashos it regards a give and take in the thought process, then you can be counted as two. Let's see the Rashi over here. Ki kama Rav, the Talmidai Nimna that the Talmidim are counted as a second group of Dayanim. Layomar Elok Goin Rav Kahana Ravasi. The Ligmrei Havitzrichi, they needed to learn from Rav. Lamasha Shamar Rabbi, they needed to learn from Rav what was passed down from his Rebbe. Aval Savre, to go ahead, Limsa Rayas Uliyashiv at Taimim, but to go ahead and think and analyze and find proofs and give reasons. Ain't it tzricha? They didn't need Rav for that. Hilchach Gavra Ba'ape Nafshehu. Therefore, they're people by themselves. The Imishum Gemara, the Shama Minei, Kol Yisrael Nami Mimoshe Kiblu. In other words, why are you going to say that they're one? That they were Talmidim of Rav because he passed down a Messiah? Then we're all Talmidim because Moshe Kibloi. The Ein Elu Taimim Havanas Liboy. The name of Im Hoysachach Maslei Mipi Rav Acha Havi Oimet Tam Acha. And the Ein Elu Taimim Havanas Liboy. These are not taimim of understanding the name that we would say Im Hoyachach Maslei Mipi Rav, that his chachma was only because of Rav. Havi Oimet Tam Acha. Then he would have said something else. In other words, so they had their own train of thought. They had their own train of thought. So Mela, that's where Rav said too. But Einachinami, if is not an equal in Svarin, then what? He'd be counted as one. Amar Rabbi Asar Devarim Yesh Bein Dine Mamanis L'Dine Nefashis. There's 10 things. The Kulon Einoigen B'Shar Niskol. Echutz Mi Esem B'Shleisha. Okay, guys, I'll give you the 10. I have it all here on this itty bitty card. Okay. The first one, you need a Bezdin of 23, not a Bezdin of 3. That's the biggie. Bezdin of 23, not 3. You're always Poseach L'Schus. Dinei Mamanis, you're Poseach Ben L'Schus Ben L'Chova. Dinei Nefashos, you always open up L'Schus. Right. When it comes to majority, Dinei Mamanis, even 1. Dinei Nefashos, to kill a guy, you need 2. Okay. Number 4, if the guy's being taken out to be killed, machzir and l'chayv. In other words, if you have a reason to go ahead and save him, if you have a chayv, you'll go ahead. If he is off the hook, we're not going to be machzir l'chayv by dinei nefashos. Only the schus. By dinei mamnis, we'll even be machzir the din l'chayv. The people sitting in front by dinei nefashos can only be melamed schus. By dinei mamnis, they can be melamed chayv. The Talmidim sat in front. By dinei nefashos, they can only be melamed schus. Mizake yochel achzir lechayva. The first mizake, when he gets mizak, in other words, he at the time of the nice massive amata, if he was mizake, he can't change his mind. Rav said b'shas gemar din he could change his mind. So the by dinei mominis, the one who's mizake b'shas masu amata could change his mind. The one who's mizake by dinei nefashos cannot change his mind. By the gemar din he could, but not to the masu masa, right? Dinei nefashos is only during the day. Gemar din is only during the day. Dinei nefashos mominis was afila by night to give me goyim the din, right? By dinei nefashos you had a lonis din. In other words, let's say you found the chayv, you kept it overnight, you went ahead and deliberated overnight. That's dinei nefashos. You begin from the side, you begin from the small dayan, and not everyone's kosher ladim, dinei nefashos. Dinei mominis even a mamza, but dinei nefashos is not. So in other words, we have 10 differences. Okay. Shara niskol, we said kamisas habal kach misas hashar. So just like you kill the baal with 23, you kill the shar with 23. But it all ends there. It all ends there. You do not need the other 9 by the shara niskol. By the shara niskol, you do not need the other line. Okay, and we'll see a Rashi in a second. Amravo, I saw the varam yesh ben dinei mamanis dinei nefashos v'kulinei noigim b'shar niskol chutz miyas mishloishes. They have the bezdin at 23. Minani mili amrav achaba papa damakra like sata mishpat ev yoincha berivoy mishpat ev yoincha yatamata, the mishpat of your enemy you can be mata al atamata mishpat shel shar niskol. Rashi like sata, says Rashi l'ra al pi echad. In other words, the majority goes ahead and votes like sata mishpat by nefashos on 1 ev yoincha of your enemy. Dinei nefashos, you can't be 1. You need 2. Shara nisko, that could even be 1. So therefore, says Rashi, not only by that one, but the other 8 as well. The other 8 as well. Avalatamata l'chayva, says Rashi, din ashar al pi echad. And from here, the fact that you don't need a majority of 2 to kill the shar, that we learn by all the other 8. The loy nehigi chutz michav gimel, that the only exception is 23. Umistabra the hekesh lahachiyasa shu ikar adin, and the reason why is because this is the main din, the 23. B'tchilasai avakula kulu inchalat. In other words, that makes sense. That the comparison to the Kemisas Abalkach, Misas Ashar means in the beginning of the din, which is the 23 of the dayan. So that's the beginning of din. But all the other things, right? Avokula inach latzala asi. All these other 8 is all to save. Paseach lechutz machzirin. Right? All this is, we spoke out, fellas, is an Indian of Atzila Esa Eda. We want to save the guy's life. Umalanu lachas al shara muid. Why would we want to say a shar niskel, a shar gore 3 times? It's a killer. Why in the world would we want to have rachmanis on a killer? Mutav better lekayim ba ubiata hara mikebecha. Better to mekayim to remove this masik from among you. So it says Rashi Geshmak. The reason why the dinei nefashais, they're all guys is 23, and all the other components is to go ahead and save the guy's life. By Shar Niskal, it is as far as the opposite. You don't want to save the Shar's life. Adarabo, Ubiata Ramikebecha, you want to get rid of the Shar. So the only thing is that the comparison is the 23, like the beginning, and that's Kemis, because since that's the Iker Hascholas Adin, Kemis is Abalim, Kachmis Shar, it's enough 23. Gishmak. Okay. Fred the Gemara Kasha, Hateshave, they only have 9. Says Gemara Hasar Ketani, we learn 10. Says Gemara Mishum, the Ein HaKol Ksherin, V'yesim V'shalish Chadehi. Okay, he has 9 because he learns as 1, 23, and not everyone's kasha to those 23. He learns as 1 din. Ha'ikachrita, we have a third one, another one to make 10. The Tanya, Eimai Shivim Sanhedrin, Zakein. A Zakein is a person who's old. The Saris, a person can't have children. Umisha Ein Leibanu, a person who did not have children. Rabbi Yehuda Maisif, Afach Sari. Even an achsar, even a cruel person, the chilufei and b'mesis, since the opposite by a mesis. By a mesis, dafka, a person who is incited someone to do avodah zara, you should get a bezdin of cruel, bitter people who have no children, who can't have children. You should go by mesis, get the most lousiest bezdin together that you can. The rachmana amalei sachmol, you shouldn't have any rachmanas v'schas olav. Says Rashi, guys, fascinating. Zakein, why can't a zakein be a dayan? Sheshakach kvar sargilul bonim. He forgot sargilul bonim ve'enu merachmani, and he won't have rachmanis. A person who has children understands that rachmanis on other people. I was in school. We'd have a teacher who was like I wouldn't say it, but let's say a follower of Germany from 33 to 45. Okay, and so. A parent would complain, and I would say, I understand. I said, you love your child, right? I said, she has no children. If she'd have children, she would have a little more rachmanis, right? It's the bottom line. Your kids, so a zakein, Rashi says, you forget sargil banim. Okay, so Rashi says, the saris has no children. Okay, so Geshmak, that would explain why a dayan has to be. Again, we see clearly the Indian of Etzila Se'eda. You have to have rachmanis. You have to be thoughtful and sensitive. You see clearly from the Gemara that had the sensitivity of the dayanim, who they are, as opposed to some other dayanim. Says the Gemara Vaita. It says, Hakol ksherim lo dinei mamis. We just said everyone's kosher dinei mamis. That was the 10th thing. That was that they included that with the 23. Hakol is a rule asui mai. Rabbi Yehuda l'sui mamzer, like dinei maminis. A mamzer could judge dinei maminis. Masha'en came dinei nefashis, fellas. You have to be a purebred. Hatanina chadizimna kol royi lodin dinei nefashis, royi lodin dinei maminis. If you could judge capital punishment, you could judge monetary matters. However, the yesh royi lodin dinei maminis. There are those who could judge dinei maminis. Vein royi lodin dinei nefashis. Lavina balasui mai v'Rabbi Yehuda l'sui mamzer. A mamzer can judge dinei maminis, but he cannot judge dinei nefashis. Dinei nefashis has to be what? Someone who's elite pickbook. Says the Gemara, Chodol Asli, V'Amar Rav Yehuda Asli Mamza, Chodol Asli. So for the Gemara, you learned it already one time. Latanina Chadasim. Why are you repeating it? And for the Gemara, no, I'll tell you why. Chodol Asli Ger, V'Chodol Asli Mamzer. That you tell me that a ger can't judge dinei nefashos nor a mamzer. A ger can't judge. The ger said that cannot judge dinei maminis nor a mamzer. That's right. Says the Gemara. What? That's sriche. You tell me both. The ashmin on ger the roy love bikal. I would say a ger could judge but because he's roy to come to kal. Aval mamzer a maloi, but a mamzer layavay mamzer bikal Hashem not. The ashmin a mamzer the bami tipik shera. I'd say that you know why. He's included in Dinei Maminis is because he comes from, I mean, the Bia that he came from is a Vissa, but the Zera was of Kashrus. So it's Richa to tell me that what? In both cases, they can judge Dinei Maminis, but they can't judge Dinei Nefashis. Not everyone is capable of being judged in Nefashis. It's my timer. The Tan Rabbi Yosef. Kishem shebezdin menukin b'tzedek, just like they're menukim, they have to be squeaky clean in sitkus. Gam menukim mikol mum. They can't what? They can't have a mum. Amar meima Mikra says kulach yafa rayasi a mum main bach. Pasuk shir shirim. V'tilma mum mamish. Now, as we're learning a mum, guys, a mum is a spiritual mum, either a ger or a mamzer, right? We're learning a mum, fellas. What means a ger or a mamzer? That's why they can't judge. Because they're not thoroughbreds, correct? So l'chayra, I think I said earlier, Mikarav Achecha, that's a king. So this is the pasuk Shir Shirim that the pasuk says that what that kulach yafer reisi umum mein bach, and speaking b'dayanim. Fred Gemara v'dilma mum mamish. Maybe it means mamish a mum. Maybe let's say shouldn't be missing an eye or a leg or whatever. Amrameima Mikra Kul Yafa Rayasi Umam Bach. The Dom Mamish says the Gemara Amravacha by Yaakov Shamakra Visyatsu Sham. So there'll be we're going to be another pasuk. It says Visyatsu Sham Imach. Yisro says they should stand there with you. And Imach Daim Lecha. The people have to go similar to Moshe. And just like Moshe was Meyuches and Dayanim, that he was came from, I guess, from Amram and Yocheved. It's interesting. Lachamat Torah, it would Lachamat Torah would be mamzeris. It's the chorus, an ant. It's the chorus, or Machzor Grushasa. He took it back. She had in between. We said Eldad and Meidad. What? We have brothers. It was Machzor Grushasa. So l'chayra Vidil says the Gemara Vidilma mishum shchina. Maybe the reason why they couldn't have a mum is only because the shchina was sure upon them. But Einachinami, a future dayan could come from Alaka Yichus. Elam Rav Nachman by Yitzchak says Nachman by Yitzchak. What's the makar that a dayan has to be squeaky clean in Yichus? So Amakra, the pasuk says by Yisroi v'nasu itach. They'll go ahead. The pasuk says v'shaftu esa'am b'chol eis v'hoya kol adavar. I said previously that I jumped the gun. It's not that's not Yisro. This is by Yisro. The shaftu esa'am b'chaleis v'haya kol adavar agadol yovi elecha v'chol adavar akatan yishbetu heim v'hakol me'alecha, and they'll make it easier on you. V'nasa itach, and they'll carry with you. So itach means they're similar to you, right? Nasa itach like you. B'doimim lecha, that they should be what miyuchasim like you, Moshe Rabbeinu.
The others, the kingdom were equal to Moshe Rabbeinu.
I don't know. I mean, in Yichus, for sure.
That's where they were to judge. And that's where they were to